Шановні колеги, ми розпочинаємо наш
Dear ladies and gentlemen, we start our next briefing. We'll talk about one of the most urgent topics, problems of Eastern Ukraine, and many of those problems the current authorities do not want to spot. We'll talk to Igor Lutsenko, a Euromaidan public sector activist, ATO participant, Mr. Serhiy Garmash, news agency Ostrov editor-in-chief. He was also coordinator of the Committee of Patriotic Forces of Ukraine, and Mr. Tymofiy Mylovanov, Professor Tymofiy Mylovanov from the University of Pittsburgh. Thank you, friends. I am also a member of the voluntary battalion Azov and a Kyiv city councillor, and I am responsible for the help to Kyiv residents who are participants in the anti-terrorist operation, but the problems are similar whether they are Kievans or not. I have to tell you that one of the most important problems that there is as far as the participation in this war is concerned is the problem of communication with authorities. We can call this war people's war, because this is people who wage the war, not the state. First of all, these are volunteers who are in war, who are the most motivated and most efficient part of the troops there. The second part is who supplies army with what. Again, this is mostly just people. We can say that people now have the right to intellectually take part in formulating the way we wage this war. In order to do this, we need, first of all, communication with the command. Why I am talking to you now is that we're sustaining heavy losses, and those are unjustified losses. Of course, there is no war without losses, but the problem is that the lion's share of those losses that we sustain are not justified, and they do not result in anything. Of course, someone should be made responsible for losses, and this responsibility should be personal, and it should be systemic as well. We have to change the patterns of the behavior of our troops, of our rear units, of our chief command in response to what is happening. And what is happening is that our brothers in arms die. We do not want them to die in vain. We have to communicate how the reaction to this or that situation should look in which we sustain losses. These should be changes in the tactics of units, in the supply of arms for them, in the way they are formed. These three problems have not been solved for over several months. And the soldiers have no other way now than to go to commanders and to demand from them that they apply some military statutes. So this people's initiative until now is the only way to improve the efficiency of our combat action. I emphasize once again that people's war provides a full moral right and every functional ground to say that representatives of volunteers should be involved, as well as families' representatives and volunteer suppliers of the army should be involved in the constantly acting communication platform with the commander-in-chief, with the head of staff, with the commanders of the troops, so that they report to those people what are they doing in order to lessen our casualties, our losses. And there should be feedback as well, when the commander-in-chief and other big bosses should listen to common people who will tell them how the war is being waged and how it should be changed. The alternative is just one. This is revolts of mothers. This is the movement of volunteer battalions with arms in hands towards general staff. We should rectify the situation not spontaneously, but in a systemic way. As far as this systemic way is concerned, what would there be if only the state were responsible for the supply of the army? The army would starve to death. Same we should do where tactics and weaponry and all other important issues are concerned. So we're demanding that there should be a mechanism by way of which the command can listen to the initiative from the ground, because this is the people's war and it is the people who wage this war. I have a similar message. It is understandable that the war will end, but last week I was in Slovyansk and Kramatorsk, and I arrived at a sad conclusion that we can win a war, but we can lose the country, because I haven't seen any systemic changes. The war was there, people died. What's going to happen further? Those are the same people at power, Patriotic of regions, those same law enforcement bodies, the police who made actually everything for the emergence of the situation that we have now in Donbass. And now they are solving the problems of separatists. I am not, of course, an expert. I cannot evaluate the military policy, but I can tell you that because I see this, there's no information or staff personnel policy from the part of the state. No one talks to people in Donbass. There was a case in Slovyansk when a woman in her years told me that it was not Ukrainian but Russian army who liberated Slovyansk, and that the Russians reinstalled order there. Yesterday my site, Ostrov, got a letter from a person whose car was stolen by the Donetsk People's Republic, and they demand that my site and myself as the editor-in-chief punishes those who stole his car. Well, you know, this says that we are going to lose the region because, okay, we have liberated the territory, but what's going to happen further? In Kramatorsk and Slovyansk, both secretaries of city councils, who are heads of authorities now, are both members of the Party of Region, and the councils are controlled by the Party of Region. Heads of police in Slovyansk, the head of the police in Slovyansk is the guy who headed Simferopol police when Mogilov was there. In Kramatorsk, the chief of police is the one who headed the local police when the city was seized by the militants. So after I came back from the east, we decided to restore the Committee of Patriotic Forces of Donbass, which worked until May, until I had to flee Donetsk after my house was fired upon, and many activists had to go away from Donetsk. So now we have decided to re-establish this organization to make public our problems and to start to decide to solve the problems that the state is not solving. If we were doing everything instead of the state, you know, then why do we need the state in this case, which does nothing? I think that our task is to report and to make the state work.
Morning. Tymofiy Mylovanov, University of Pittsburgh professor. I'm Ukrainian, but for 15 years I live and work in the US, and I represent VoxUkraine group. VoxUkraine, the economists, foreigners. We are Ukrainians, but we are working abroad in other countries. And we came in because of through working groups, and we looked at this and we understood that the government for reform, it's very low probability for reforms, and nothing will happen. It will be just repetition of 2004. There are no experts, because of those who are in Ukraine, the majority of them, they are post-Soviet experts, and they think like Soviet. The same in the state in Ukraine. Ukraine understands the management of the country as the Soviet system from top to bottom. And what changed, that is changed from bottom to top, was volunteer battalions, those hospitals, assistants, initiatives, everything was done from bottom. The state is not able to do anything because it's post-Soviet. And the reforms that they're trying to run them, they are not legitimate because they are imposed from the top. That should be changed. And this reforms has to start from bottom to top and not opposite. It can be changed, where there is a window for change of the system, that's in the east, because inside of the country the system is the same. Maybe people are afraid, but not very much. But the system was shaken in the east. Secondly, there is a big visibility. They have to tell someone that in Kiev they stole half of a truck of humanitarian aid. People don't waste your time. If you say that in Slavyansk, the CNN and New York Times would come, that say media support is very important. It's very important. It's possible to change this. It's important to change something in the East, because now there's a conflict of volunteers and people who are dying and who help, and you see how the friends are dying. They see the system as it was Soviet. It is Soviet, and it should not be a fight against the system. It should help to build through political process, and it must help to build a state or a region. And that's why the issue of survival for the new government, for new authorities, they should depends on how they find forces that would fight in the east, and how they organize them in a political stream. If they don't do that, there will be problems. What should be done in the east? First of all, economic problems. They are the most important. If the economy is rebuilt, and if people see the improvement of in their life, they will support the state. Secondly, information support is very important locally, and information should come from bottom to top. And three, they should build a civic society on the basis of activists, patriots who are not killed locally, who would like to come, and those people should be consolidated into civil society, not into people who are shooting. They should be turned into civil society. There are a lot of activists who can, if you help them, like in Kramatorsk, we'll hold a roundtable next week about reforms, and we'll support a new program. But concrete steps, there is no need to fine business who lost everything. Yes, I know that because I saw directors of companies who they took everything from them, and tax inspection is trying to get money from them. People don't trust even EBRD and other key offices. They think there are bureaucrats there, so there should be direct programs, because people would like to get grants and loans, and those that should be considered in London. It's controversial, but it can be done. And tenders to build the region, that should be transparent. We should not we cannot have all transparent tenders, and because there is a lot of mafia that will be against that. But to make at least for one region, that's possible. Jobs. If there are no jobs, there will be new revolution. People should work and should earn, and those tenders. 50% of jobs should be local, not from Kiev guys to come, and for people not to have job local. And fourth, we should identify, I repeat, people who are patriots, and they should be elected locally. They should run the authorities locally. If that doesn't happen, it will not change. The country will not change. Through the East, it's a unique chance. If we don't use it, then we'll wait for 20, 30 years. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tymofiy. Anything to add? Then we can start questions, answers, please.
Have you looked at the problem of denazification denazifying of the region. I mean, not to allow the Party of Regions to be in power in the region. And this is the question to Tymofiy. I don't know how to do this. The problem of the Ukrainian politics is that we have regional parties and they are breaking the country. In a normal democracy, there are national parties who are fighting for different ideas. We don't have this. And now we will have the elections. If we do not build the nationwide parties, we won't be able to do this. We can, of course, throw away all the guys who are from the Party of Regions, but battalions will occupy their places, and we should not have the dictatorship in the parties, while even the new parties in our country are the same. We should implement reforms in the parties. This is very complicated. I want to add that, of course, there is a draft law on deseparatization in the first reading, but it will lose its sense if it is passed after the election. We should adopt it pass it through the parliament before the election. Let's not be very strict about the terms and about the words. There are clear-cut norms in this draft law. If they are adhered to, then everything will be okay. My question is to Mr. Garmash. In 4 districts of the region, heads of police and districts were agreed with you, with your organization, but what's happening to them now? These rumors are a bit exaggerated. When the idea appeared to hold the referendum to join 4 districts to Dnipropetrovsk region, we have separated ourselves from this referendum, although we were not opposed to this idea because, we thought that it will be instrumental in bringing Ukrainian troops into those districts. Then there had to be personnel for these districts. Of course, Sushiro, who used to be a bathman of Yanukovych, would not support United Ukraine. And of course, our committee of patriotic forces and the Udar party did suggest some personal changes. Let's say about the Veliki Novosilki district. We suggested one person to head the district, but another person was confirmed and approved in Dnipropetrovsk. When we came to Novosilki and tried to talk to them, but we were asked to leave the premises. The revolutionary situation created some out-of-format situations there. I can tell you that, in principle, I may say I am proud that some people were appointed in Alexandrivska and Dobropilla district. I think that those are very effective people. I cannot tell you about chiefs of police because I don't know where you had the information that we influenced their appointment. It is very hard to influence our police. And although, for instance, I cannot reproach Konstantin Pozhedayev with something, I still do not see rotation of personnel, because people are just being swapped from one city into another, and their efficiency remains the same. I told you about examples in Kramatorsk and Slovyansk. Yes, I know that in Velika Novoselivka they were even talking about launching a criminal case about head of the police. Semen told me so, Semen Semenchenko. Everybody is equal in the face of the law, despite of the fact who appointed them. We should look into every case and punish them if they deserve so. We will please speak into the mic. My question goes first of all to Serhiy Garmash. I understand that probably this is impossible, but maybe something happened like this. Was there any sociology in the anti-terrorist operation zone about the support or non-support for Ukraine? Is there any dynamics? And if there were no sociological polls, what are your impressions? I think that we polled Donetsk on the 27th of March, and in principle, they provided hope. I told our committee that we will win because the population was in our favor. 30% of Donetsk, not Donbass, but Donetsk region, city, were willing to defend Ukrainian independence, and 30% were ready to fight against Ukrainian forces. The rest were to be influenced and won on our side. After this, there was no sociology, of course. My major measure is my mother-in-law. She took part in the referendum. She was sort of a separatist. I hope she doesn't hear me today. And she is now definitely in favor of Ukraine. She weeps at the sight of the Ukrainian flag. And she tells me that many people in her settlement, even those who went to vote for the Donetsk People's Republic on the referendum, they didn't vote for what happened later. As soon as people saw that they didn't get the improvement of their lives, the public opinion went in favor of Ukraine. As far as I know, in Luhansk region, there's a thing when Luhansk militants were sent to other places, and they were replaced with people from Russia. Can you tell us whether this is true? You know, I know that the mass of the firing squad within the Russian militants, you know, are people from Russia. As a rule, those are fanatics who are ready to die for the sake of great mother Russia. As far as our guys are concerned, you know, it's about, like, for instance, the prisoners who left, who fled the prison when it was stormed, and many prisoners came back to the prison, while some of them did remain with the militants, because for them freedom is better. Mr. Mylovanov, you said that one of the hindrances on the way of reforms in Ukraine is that the personnel, the cadres, are post-Soviet. However, now we have the government with young people, also the rehabilitation package of reforms driven ahead by young people. So what are the real reasons for reforms not being held? There are people in Ukraine who can do reforms. There are good people in the government. I know some of them whom I respect and my colleagues respect very much. Of course, there are no question that there are people in Ukraine like this, but in majority they were pushed out to the roadside. And of course, yes, there is the rehabilitation package of reforms and many other initiatives. They try to support those people. This is very good. And that's why we have some hope. As far as the government using the anti-terrorist operation or Russian-Ukrainian war, as my group calls it, they use it in order to say everything goes for ATO now. This is not timely now, the reforms. And of course, if the person is clever, they understand that this is not so. As a Pittsburgh University professor, how can you help? I want to tell you that there is European Commission, and they, especially the support group, I met them several days ago. They will help to bring experts here, and we will also write and respond to requests. We're talking to normal people in the government, trying to answer their questions. Yesterday, I tried to make the best expert in the world to comment on the two draft laws to say which is better. This was very hard, but there is such an opportunity. Any other questions, colleagues? Regrettably, we have another briefing at 12:30. Thank you very much, colleagues, and we are awaiting you soon again.